Today is a very special day in the Jewish calendar. It's Valentine's Day. Okay, it's not exactly a Jewish holiday, but grant me a little leeway here. Valentine's Day, known in our day as a day for lovers, originated with the Roman festival called Lupercalia. It was celebrated in mid-February, and like Tu B'Shvat, which we celebrated last week, commemorated the beginning of spring. In those days, it included fertility rites and matchmaking by lottery. I can only imagine how that worked out. By the 5th century, the Pope replaced Lupercalia with St. Valentine's Day, and ultimately by the 14th century, it became a day to celebrate love. And well, love is Jewish. Two of the most famous Jewish textual quotes are about love. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, you shall love Adonai your God. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And of course, there are hundreds of other verses and stories throughout our textual tradition that glorify love. Love is important. Just look at this week's Torah portion, Yitro. It teaches us practically everything we need to know. In fact, it is a love story at its core. This is the moment when the people Israel, having escaped Egyptian slavery, stand together at Sinai to receive the Torah. Mount Sinai is the moment in the life of our people when we commit ourselves to God, and God commits to us in return. The word we use is brit, covenant. We make this covenant with God as individuals, and we make it as a community. It's what Abraham and Sarah did as they set out on their journey in the beginning of the book of Genesis, and it is what our people did at Mount Sinai, and it's what we continue to do every single day. It's a metaphorical marriage, the ancient rabbis teach us. Mount Sinai is the chuppah, the Torah is the ketubah. And as Rabbi David Wolpe explains, we read it like a love letter, poring over every sentence, interpreting each word to ascertain meaning and feeling and passion and commitment, and then further delving into every letter for specific intent and purpose. And God proposes, saying, "If you will keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured people." And we accept, replying, "All that the Eternal has spoken, we will do." And in case you aren't convinced of the love story between God and the people, just look to the end of the Torah in the book of Deuteronomy, where it states as clear as day, as if to remind us, or perhaps even to convince us, it was because of God's love for you that God made the covenant and brought you out of the land of Egypt. God's love. Wow. I know that to us, the religious language of love doesn't sound very Jewish. In fact, quite the opposite. Again, as Rabbi Wolpe teaches, it has Christological connotations that are jarring to the Jewish ear. He explains that words like faith and grace and love just don't sound right to us. But in Hebrew, they feel very familiar. He's right. They do. We literally just said, Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta. With an eternal love, O God, you love the people Israel. And even though we don't generally talk about God's love, and we leave that for other faith traditions, it is equally a part of Judaism. So as we return to Parshat Yitro and focus on love, we recognize that this Torah portion actually gives us tips for our own personal and human relationships in how to interact with each other, and how to talk with each other, and how to appreciate each other. In the moments leading up to the giving of the 10 Commandments, for example, it describes the scene saying, God came down, and then it says, and Moses went up. It's funny because I always envisioned Moses making the trek up the mountain to meet God at the top, where God just hangs out. But that one little phrase, almost hidden in the rest of the text, shows us something different. It's not one-sided at all. Moses isn't doing all the work trekking up that mountain to meet God. It's not about power. It's not about control. It's not about hierarchy. It's about relationship. where each side comes to meet each other in compromise. God comes down and Moses goes up. They come to each other. They make accommodations for each other. They meet halfway, as it were. It's a good reminder for us, the art of compromise. And don't forget the commandments themselves. This particular portion focuses on the top 10 of the 613, and they are divided into thou shalts and thou shalt nots. Thou shalt not make a graven image. Thou shalt not swear falsely. Thou shalt not murder, steal, lie. But I am Adonai your God. Thou shalt remember the Sabbath day. Thou shalt honor your father and mother. The language is so interesting with both positive and negative commandments. Is it that we hear things in a certain way in order to understand? Sometimes we need to hear no to make an impact. But more often, we need to hear yes to support us in our feelings, our confidence, and esteem. We need to know that there's someone on our side no matter what. The 613 isn't just a list of things we can't do. That would be so discouraging. But it's more of an accounting, a portrayal, a story of who we are, who we can be with the support and cooperation, in this case of God, but also in our lives with the people that we love. It reminds us that the language we use with other people is significant. There are times when it's okay, important even, to say no, thou shalt not. And there are times when we have to be agreeable, supportive, and optimistic. Yes, we can. So a quick aside, Sheldon and I joke all the time about how I once asked him if he would come to New York with me for a meeting. His first response was a quick, no, I can't go. He then paused, reflected, and then rephrased. I would love to come to New York with you, but unfortunately I can't make it that weekend. Did I tell it okay? Yeah. We laugh about it all the time, but in truth, the language that we use makes a big difference. And now look to the beginning of the portion, when Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, for whom the portion is named, comes to visit. He sees Moses working so hard, teaching law, adjudicating every single person's dispute, and trying to keep the peace. He's doing everything himself, and it is absolutely overwhelming. Jethro tells him, you can't do this any longer. You can't keep up this pace. It's time to share responsibility. And Moses actually listens. And after that, appoints others to adjudicate the everyday cases, reserving the major ones for himself, similar to a Supreme Court justice. Jethro teaches him, you need to make time for your family, who has just returned to him, that he needs to take time for himself so that he doesn't burn out, that he must prioritize his personal life and make time for love. Family is so vital in Torah and certainly in our Jewish tradition. Making that time for our families and prioritizing our relationships means we don't take them for granted. If anything, this Valentine's Day is the hallmark reminder of what is most important. So there are so many more tips in this Torah portion about communication and conflict resolution, about how to treat your in-laws, not to mention your own parents, about honesty and reciprocity, faithfulness and kindness, and yes, it is really all about love. So today, on this Valentine's Day, this Shabbat, make love a priority. Tell the people in your life that you love them. Open your heart to God's love, and perhaps offer a little something in return. For did you know prayer is called avodat shebalev, service of the heart? So tonight, let's offer a little love to God and to the people that we love. Shabbat shalom.